Hello, Blazers. Welcome to episode 155 of UAB Green and Told. Original debut Monday, July 28th, 2025. Through this podcast, we're able to share stories from members of the UAB community. Want to listen to previous episodes of UAB's most listened to podcast? Check us out at alumni.uab.edu/greenandtold on Spotify or the Apple Podcast app. And while there, leave a written review that'll help other alums find us. I'm Greg Berry, a UAB alum and Director of Communications in the Office of Alumni Affairs. What exactly happens when the path you're on starts to feel like someone else's dream? Today's guest, NaBeela Washington, was checking all the boxes on her nursing track, but something didn't feel right. As she'll share, her journey through college was not a straight line. It was more like a game of connect the dots of healthcare.
I ended up changing my major like 6+ more times to other parallel majors like radiology. I considered going to med school.
And as she learned, sometimes the most pivotal advice isn't wrapped in encouragement. It comes in a challenge. One professor's blunt question forced NaBeela to confront the practicality of her dreams.
So she I hate to say the word harsh, but she forced me to just be real. Like, are you actually going to be able to get a job with this degree?
And as we'll discover, the story doesn't end there. In a quiet pottery studio, something unexpected sparked, and NaBeela's creative fire came roaring back.
I started writing, I started taking classes, and it's kind of like these embers were starting to form.
NaBeela Washington is a writer, editor, and creative force whose path to the page was anything but predictable. From nursing labs to pottery wheels, her story is a testament to the power of listening to your inner voice, even when it's just a whisper. But to truly understand how she found her way back to creativity, you have to go even further back to the little girl who was already building worlds before she knew what to call them.
She was curious. She was writing fiction before she learned to write poetry. She was really into science. She had those big Richard Scarry pop-up books, loved Leapfrog. Those, I don't know if they're still selling them, but those Leapfrog electronic, hands-on toys. I was really into Carmen Sandiego games, and this was with like AOL dial-up. Technology was completely different then. So I was either outside, riding my bike, exploring, had my hands in the dirt, just trying to figure out what the world was around me.
You mentioned curiosity, you mentioned writing. Where does the interest in writing come from? I think on your bio online, it mentions that you were 6 years old when you started writing. So where does that interest come from?
I'm not sure. I think I was just naturally drawn to words. I just naturally fell into the joy of reading. My mom, I remember her bringing me to the library. I remember enjoying book reports. You look up or you have to find a physical encyclopedia, a physical dictionary. Everything's digital now, but the labor of doing that, I loved that. And I loved words. I loved figuring out what, the connotation, what words meant. I loved stringing them together. I loved my family. Sometimes they would spell out words that they didn't want me to know, but I was so kind of advanced that they'd spell it out and I'd still know what they were talking about, especially if it was a word that was more adult. It's no, I'm still in the conversation. But I feel like they are born with natural gifts, or you're born with things that you're just naturally drawn to. And I think words and writing was just something that clicked for me. And I think science was kind of that too, but yeah, more so writing.
What does a 6-year-old from McCalla write about beyond book reports?
I was writing about vampires and space a lot. I wrote about love, which I don't write about love as much now. Writing about love kind of gives me the ick. It feels very cliche. Or just writing about romance in general. It's hard to write about romance in a way that feels unique now because it's been done so much. And I feel like it's been done so much by writers who have done it well, if that makes sense. But yeah, I was just writing about very futuristic things that I thought might occur in the future. Like in the future, we're all going to be riding our bicycles because it might not make sense to drive, XYZ, or in the future, we might live on another planet type of things. Like just kind of like these hypothetical situations, or these weird circumstances that I found this particular character that I had come up with in my head, found her in different situations in.
At what point during your childhood journey did you realize, you know what, I've got a knack for writing?
I think it was when there's a teacher. So I went to West Hills Elementary School. There was a teacher in the second grade. Her name is Miss Hunter. I'm not sure if she's still there, but she took a particular liking to me. I remember her pushing me and kind of demonstrating what I guess we call allyship now. Like she helped me go to a writing conference. I believe she was one of my earlier teachers who helped me read some of my poetry on a radio station. But she was one of the earlier allies that I had in my childhood who made me believe that I should continue writing. Because there are people that will obviously kind of kill a dream. They'll be like, you don't need to do that anymore. Or, you didn't make the cut for a reason. But she was one of the key people outside of my mom who made me feel like, okay, like this isn't all in my head. Like I should keep doing this.
As a high schooler from McCalla, what did you want to do when you grew up?
I didn't think that I would be able to make a career out of writing. So I was accepted into the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and my major was nursing. And I wanted to be a pediatrician. So I was on that standard healthcare. Like I want to help people. I want to give back to the community. I think that's why I was like, I think I want to be a nurse. And also I loved science. Like I loved anatomy in high school. Loved it. Loved dissections. Loved biology. Hated math. But loved science.
What changed? What made you shift gears away from medicine and then focus on writing?
I think it was like was it my sophomore year? It was either the second part of my freshman year or the beginning of my sophomore year. I was entering the part of nursing where you're beginning to shadow. And I shadowed in a psych ward, and I think I just had a moment where I was like, this is too much for me. I remember phoning my academic advisor and saying, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I've taken tap, I've taken piano, I've taken all these other things because that's what I wanted to do instead of organic chem, instead of these things to kind of move me forward in my nursing career. And I just shadowed in psych and I didn't feel connected. I felt very displaced. I felt very concerned about why I was there. And, she was like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I think I want to change my major, but I was scared, because my father, he works in surgery at St. Vincent's, and my mom, she went to school for psychology and counseling. So like that was kind of like my umbrella, my purview of like, okay, this is like the only other way I can help people. I didn't think I could help people through writing. That's when that shifted, when I shadowed and I was like, yeah, I can't see myself doing this every day. My brain feels way more fluid. Their schedules seem pretty set. Their work-life balance seems pretty cruddy. I just didn't like what I saw.
Yeah.
It hit me very hard. And so I just had to have a hard conversation. But I ended up changing my major like 6+ more times to other parallel majors like radiology. I considered going to med school to be a neonatal cardiologist. I tried to like literally appease my father. I was like, look, I changed my major to this. I changed my major to this. Like, look, I'm still in healthcare. Look, I'm trying. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna not do healthcare. And I had a eureka moment in English 101. I had a Canadian English teacher, and we were writing a paper on like how advertisements are made. And I did not know that like people were hired to scout buildings, like creative designers were hired. I didn't know that like the advertisements that you see, the commercials that you see, there were so many different jobs to building out that advertisement, that one person didn't create that advertisement, if that makes sense. Like writing that essay, it just blew my mind, and it kind of expanded my worldview in terms of what was possible in communications and in careers. I called up my academic advisor, and I was like, I think I want to go into communications. And I was like, how can I save all of the credits that I have, and not basically fall behind? And she connected me to a person in the individually design department at UAB. And we began working together to design my major, because I was the only one with visual advertising. And then I changed it to communications. But then I realized we noticed that I had more arts. I had art history. I loved art. The bulk of my credits were in the arts. And we didn't want like me to have to extend like my stay at UAB for another year, because I was set to graduate in 2014, and I didn't want to have to graduate in 2015, 2016. And so that's why I also deepened that relationship with that department, so that I could design my major. So that's how I made the pivot from nursing to like communications, or to arts, then communications.
You hear about individually designed majors quite often. It's not just a one-off for you. We've had others on the podcast that have gone through the same thing. But talk about what goes into an individually designed coursework, because it's not just randomly selecting courses that you want to take. You have to be deliberate with the process.
Right. So I had to do research. I had to prove that, because actually my first pitch was Japanese advertising, and the dean of the individually designed majors department was like, she's like, NaBeela, like, are you planning on moving to Japan? Because I had just completed a semester of Japanese, and I loved it. I still love the language. And she was like, be realistic. So she, I hate to say the word harsh, but she forced me to just be real. Like, are you actually going to be able to get a job with this degree? Are there Japanese advertising agencies in the United States that will hire you? Or are you basically selling yourself short, or kind of putting yourself in a corner, or limiting your job opportunities? Because if she approves this proposal for Japanese advertising, that's not going to be on my degree. It's going to still say like bachelor's of arts, but I'll explain it. Oh, I have a degree in Japanese advertising. They'll be like, what? So you can only do advertising in Japanese? Or it'll just make it really so niche that I exclude specific opportunities. So like, her being realistic and forcing me to think about those scenarios really pushed me to think about the reality of things, and begin thinking about the real world outside of school, which I think is important for someone thinking about designing their own major, because I think it's easy to get caught up in, oh, I really love, indigenous art forms or indigenous sculptures, and I want my major to be that. But it's like, okay, that can still be your core passion, but like you have to be realistic about the job opportunities, how much of that is actually going to make up your practice. And I had to do research. I had to research like how many jobs were out there, like how many agencies cater to Japanese advertising, how many jobs were out there hiring someone specifically for someone with that skill set, and there was no one. So it's like she's not going to approve this. She also made suggestions like, okay, like I see that the bulk of your credits are graphic design, you've taken a lot of art history, you do have some language components. What about visual advertising? This opens the door for creative direction. And that helped me to begin researching those specific types of jobs. And I had to present different salaries. I had to present like the amount of that specific job to her. But yeah, so it was a lot of research, and I had to write a paper like literally like a research paper, and present it to her. It was kind of like a proposal based on the research that and why I felt UAB should let me graduate with that degree, and how I thought that degree would be effective.
During this time, how much were you writing creatively and doing poetry? Were you doing it all?
No. Yeah, I wasn't. Mm-mm.
So the focus was on more so visual advertising.
Yeah, I think I put like creative writing on the back burner completely.
So when you graduated with your individually designed degree, where did you go? What did you do?
I got a job with AmeriCorps, the Alabama Environmental Council, and it was a 1-year contract in 2014 to 2015. And I was hired to be their communications and outreach coordinator. So that involved doing research in the community to understand like how people understood or interpreted their programs, what people thought about renewable energy, doing research because they wanted to expand their recycling program. They were thinking about moving it from XYZ location to a better location, traveling a bit to present that research, and also kind of improving their communications plans. So it was really like my first big girl job. But yeah, it was really cool. I enjoyed it, but I also felt like a big fish in a small pond. This was when Snapchat had just first come out. This was before the whole influencer thing, before OnlyFans, before Twitch really blew up, and before like people really took content creatorship and ran with it. So like we were doing like social media campaigns, and everything had a routine and everything was set in stone. And I found that style of communications very rigid. And so I think that was another thing that pushed me to leave Birmingham.
So at what point did the journey come back to, or did you rediscover writing and poetry?
So I moved to New Hampshire in 2016, between like 2016, 2018. And I started working at a art and like pottery center called Studio 550 in Manchester, New Hampshire. They're super cool. I was in my pottery zone. And the owner, her name is Monica Leap. I miss her a lot. That time of my life was a period of healing, self-discovery, and also kind of like tapping back into my inner child and rediscovering my creative self, because I had told myself that I could not make money or make a living from being creative. And I had essentially kind of put out any spark or any flame of being creative. So like getting to work at a pottery studio, and she had hired me to do marketing and communications, but like I was also starting to teach, and I was building my confidence, teaching kids. I started writing, I started taking classes, and like it's kind of like these embers were starting to form. And then all of a sudden I was like, I think I want to go back to school for writing. And so in 2018, I got accepted at Southern New Hampshire University for English and with a concentration in creative writing. And that's when I started writing vigorously. That's when I surrounded myself more with writers on the East Coast, with writers in like the digital space. And that's when I really just began to stop denying myself creativity. Because for a long time, I just denied myself that fact. And also I denied myself the opportunity to help people through the arts.
When you got back to writing and poetry, I don't want to say you burst on the scene, but you kind of burst on the scene. I mean, you've got some pretty cool things. You got a nomination for a Best New Poet through Voices of Color Poet Fellowship from Martha's Vineyard Institute of Creative Writing. You're one of the 20th finalists for Catapult Seacoast 10 to Watch, and the list goes on and on. What kind of led to those accolades?
Sometimes it's about like who you know and the relationship that you have with them and the good that you've done. All of that stuff happened like super unexpectedly. And all of the things that have happened since then, like I think I was also nominated for like Best of Net or something. And that was unexpected, but I'm now like close friends with one of the folks that nominated me. And I guess all I'm saying is the nomination circles you never know the paths that you'll take, and you never know how those paths will intersect with people that will eventually nominate you for something. Or, yeah. I don't feel like I'm saying, I just don't want that to come off the wrong way, because I don't feel like,
Yeah.
I feel like I've worked really hard for everything, but I've also learned that it's about who you know, especially in the art world, especially in the publishing world, especially in the self-publishing world. Like, look at Taylor Swift and her putting out like a book. You have to think about like self-interest, and it's a lot. I'm not gonna get into that, but yeah, I'm rambling now.
So, you pass off the accolades with a sense of humility, and I'm gathering that's kind of who you are, but they have to mean something.
I've worked very hard to create value for myself in other things, or to create value in myself so that I am not like overwhelmed by things like that, if that makes sense. I'm trying to like find my words. I'm like thinking and trying to find my words at the same time. So if it's not coming out how I think it's coming out, I apologize. But if I hadn't gone through certain rings of fire, if I hadn't experienced different things and had that reawakening, I think I would cling to those nominations a lot more, and I would need them to know that I am valued and to know that I matter. But I know that I matter without them, is what I'm saying. So they matter, and I feel exceptional, like even more so with them. But like if I didn't have them, I would feel okay too. And I think writers should feel great no matter if they, like, I still don't have a collection. Like the collection I started in college 2018, I have not published that, and that bothers me, like subconsciously, like not like active subconscious, but like deep down I'm like, dang, like there are writers out there on their 10th collection. They are poet laureate for the 4th time. They are on their 60th chapbook, and me, all I've got are some nomination, like I could compare myself to heaven and back, but like that's when you have to remember who you are and really ground yourself in what matters most to you.
So what are you doing today?
I'm a Chicago-based journalist, or actually I'm a Berwyn-based journalist, but people consider Berwyn, which is like on a good day is 15 or less minutes west of Chicago, but they consider it Chicago because it's like 2 or so neighborhoods west. So I say Chicago. I started a nonprofit, actually, a lit mag, so like a zine. But really it was like my way of finding community and my way of just like making sure I didn't forsake what I was trying to do and making sure I had community around me. So that community is called Lucky Jefferson. I started that in 2018, and then in 2019 we published our first issue, and that first issue is a lot of the students that were actually in like my classes, which is kind of cool. And then in 2021 we incorporated to be a 501c3, and now we are doing research, so like partnering with Illinois Humanities to do research on why Black and Brown writers feel they don't belong in the publishing space. We have a creative arts program where we're partnering with college and high school students so that they can better, explore and deepen their artistic practice outside of the classroom, something that I felt like I couldn't do when I was trying to figure out my whole artistic jam. And then we publish poetry, flash fiction, creative nonfiction, and all types of things. So it blends writing, research, and the arts, all the things that I love and kind of struggle to find and figure out when I was in my undergrad program at UAB.
Do you think the 6-year-old you from McCall, Alabama would have ever have thought they'd accomplish what you have in writing and poetry?
Oh no, not at all. Yeah, no. I think the 6-year-old me is like so proud. She's like amazed. She's like at the top of the stands, like, go you did that. Like, I can't believe it. Like, that's me.
That's NaBeela Washington, a 2014 graduate of the College of Arts and Sciences, where she charted her own path with an individually designed major. Today, she's a writer, artist, and founder of the nonprofit Lucky Jefferson. Through her creativity and drive, NaBeela embodies the spirit of what it means to be a blazer.
I think my time being a blazer, service was a big deal. And service was how I made a lot of friends, how I met a lot of people, how I got to know the campus. And so I think being a blazer is service. Honestly, it's building community by giving back, by reciprocity, by sharing.
Be sure to check out past episodes of the UAB Green and Told podcast. Listen in at alumni.uab.edu/green and told. Have a story to share or know someone who does? Email greenandtold@uab.edu. Finally, be sure to follow us on social media. Just search UAB Alumni on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for listening, and until next time, go Blazers.